Now, this next video might actually surprise you a little bit. We're on this journey from 0 cash discounting sales to 10. And so we start by taking action, right? We're out there, we're prospecting daily, consistently. Then we're getting people interested. So people are asking us questions, they're showing an interest, and we're getting excited about that. But don't get too excited yet, okay? It's good that you got to that point, but that doesn't mean that you're about to make a sale. It just means that people are interested, okay? There's a huge, there's not just a difference, there's like a canyon between interested and sale, okay? And that chasm is called decision. All right. So the next step in this process, you're like, okay, James, I'm prospecting consistently. People are interested in what I have to say. What's the next step in this process for me to make a sale? You ready? The next step is for you to get people to tell you no. That's the next step. You're like, what? How's the next step for me to get people to tell me no? I'll tell you why. The challenge that salespeople, and this is so practical, I've seen it play out like literally thousands of times. The challenge salespeople have when they're starting to sell something new is that they start taking action. That's a big challenge. Then they start to figure out what they're talking about, and they're pretty good at sales, and they're likable. And so people start to show an interest. And they really get intoxicated by this interest, and they just want to make sure everybody is interested. And they want to make sure everybody likes them. And they want to make sure that every relationship that they think they're building is good. And it's like they get overwhelmed with this positivity and they forget that in order to make a sale, people have to make a decision, yes or no, right? Now, what's interesting is if you're like, well, I'm just going to get people to say yes. Well, actually, you're probably not going to get them to say yes if that's your objective. Instead, and this is a key point, change your objective to this. Get people to make a decision, okay? Yes or no is fine at this point, just something, okay? So let me be even more practical here, and let's talk about how this really feels. So you've been out in the field for 2 or 3 days, people start showing an interest, right? Day 3, 4, and 5, you all of a sudden have 12 prospects in your pipeline that are quote unquote interested. They said, yeah, come back. And, maybe they asked a question you didn't know the answer to, so you got to come back. Maybe they have a POS system you didn't know if you could integrate with, whatever it is. All of a sudden, you're in a position where you're like, I have 12 people who are interested, okay? Now, at this point, you're feeling like nervous. Oh my goodness, I have 12 people interested. If I could sell 4 of these, if I could sell 6 of these, I would really be on my way, all right? Let me save you some time, okay? You're not going to sell 4 of them. You're not going to sell 6 of them. What you really want to do is you want to get as many of those 12 as possible to give you a yes or a no. Don't worry about how many of them you sell. You're probably only going to sell 1. All right? Why is that? Why is like, oh, James, you're being so negative. No, I'm just being realistic. This is sales. Let me tell you how it really is. I've done it. I'm good at sales, okay? And I'm very good at sales. And I've done this, and I know how the numbers play out for me. I know how the numbers have played out for hundreds of other reps. Those first 10 to 12 people that are interested, you're not going to close them at 50% or 30%. You're going to close them at about 10% because, again, you're still learning what you're doing. And so every step along this path is like a whole new experience. You've never gotten somebody to say yes before. You don't know how to at this. Now, you've sold insurance or mortgages or cars or even, let me say, traditional processing, right? This is different. Now, of course, traditional processing, you've got a little bit of a leg up because you understand like merchant agreements and contracts and, the portal and terminals and all this stuff. But still, maybe you're going to close at 15 or 20%, but cash discounting is a new thing. So you have to lower your expectations a little bit. You have these 10 or 12 people. Here's the mistake. The mistake is a lot of salespeople just spin their wheels in the mud for 2 weeks, following up on the same 10 or 12 people that frankly are probably not going to buy anyway because they already got turned off by your inexperience and lack of knowledge in this thing that you're selling. And you might say, well, that's ridiculous. That's so harsh. That's so negative. It's just the truth. It's realistic, okay? So your goal is this. Get them to make a decision, okay? Let me tell you how this conversation has played out 500 times when I'm coaching an individual rep. They just start selling cash discounting. I talk to them after 2 days and they're depressed. No, let me back up a second. I talked to them, the second day and they're like, well, I still didn't go prospecting yet. They haven't taken action. They're terrified. They feel like they don't know what they're doing yet. And so I convince them, look, just go take action. Don't worry about the results. Just go take action. Okay, fine. I call them back after 2 days. They're like, oh my word, I took action and nobody's interested. I've talked to 40 people. No one's interested. And I'm like, that's okay. Let's just keep going, Then all of a sudden I call them back after 2 or 3 days after that. It's like the end of the first week. And they're like, James, since we last talked, you won't believe it. I have 10 people that are interested. I'm like, that's amazing. That's great. You know what I mean? So then I talked to them 5 days after that, right? A week later. And I'm like, hey, how'd it go with those 10? And they're like, well, I still have 3 or 4 of them that I really think I'm going to sell. And I've got a lot of follow-ups. And I'm like, so you haven't closed anybody yet? They're like, no, but I feel like I'm getting really close. And I'm like, okay, how many of those people have told you no? And they're like, well, none of them told me no. But there's some that are more interested than others. And I'm like, whoa, back up. So nobody's even made a decision yet. And see, this is the mistake, right? What's happening is they literally spent their whole week. They didn't go prospecting. They're just thinking about these 10 or 12 deals. They keep going back every day. Stop. Okay. That's not how you do it. You got 10 or 12 people interested. Go back to each of them and get them to make a decision. A yes or a no. Either one is fine. You're ambiguous. You don't care. Just give me a yes or a no, right? So you go back and have a good conversation with them and say, hey, I've got a lot of people right now that are interested in the program. I certainly don't want to waste any of your time. So let me ask you a question. Are you ready to move forward today? You're like, but you have all these great closing techniques. Yes. But in this case, just get a yes or a no. You got to get a decision. Okay. So get that decision, get that yes or no. And you really don't care which one it is, but you just got to close some deals. If you can do that and get this closed yes or closed no, you're going to get a lot of no's, but that's okay. That's what's going to get you your first yes. But we're going to talk about that in the next video.